I went to the Appalachian Mountains a few months ago. I thought a weekend in a cabin would help me with my photography. I was 34 and used to being around nature, but I had never been alone in a cabin for so long. It sounded peaceful, a break from my busy life. I never imagined how wrong it would all go. When I arrived at the cabin, it was late afternoon. It looked charming, surrounded by tall trees and a nearby stream. I snapped a few photos and felt good. This was going to be a great getaway. As night fell, I noticed something odd on the walls. There were deep scratches like claw marks. I told myself it was probably just wild animals. But I didn't feel completely at ease. Still, I put on a brave face and prepared for the night. I set my camera down and turned on the fireplace. I made tea and listened to the crackle of the fire. It was quiet, too quiet. Around midnight, I heard a noise from the attic. It was a thump or maybe a shuffle. I figured it was a raccoon or something trying to get in. The feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me, though. I looked around, but there was nothing. The next few days were a mix of shooting photos and strange things happening. I heard whispers in the cabin at night. It made my skin crawl. Sometimes I thought I saw movement, but when I looked, nothing was there. Each time my heart raced. I started checking my stuff like it might be missing or moved. Sometimes it felt like it was. I tried to shake it off, but the whispers grew louder. It felt like the walls were pressing in on me. I could have sworn I saw shadowy figures flickering in the corners. Every time I approached, they vanished. I kept telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I thought maybe I needed rest, but I wasn't tired enough to confuse reality. By the last night, the claw marks on the walls looked deeper. I was uneasy. Before bed, I glanced up at the attic. A heavy darkness loomed there. My heart pounded. I thought maybe I was imagining things, but I couldn't ignore it. When I turned to leave, I heard a voice, clear as day. "Why are you here?" it asked. I froze. There was no one there. I felt cold all over. I rushed to my room. I locked the door and sat on the bed. The whispers echoed in my mind, growing louder. I wanted to leave right then, but I was too scared to move. I tried to sleep, but it didn't come. Instead, I listened to the sounds of the night. The thumps returned from the attic, but now they were faster. I couldn't take it anymore. I bolted for the door, and as I did, one last whisper brushed my ear. I never looked back. I just ran. I stumbled down the dirt path, lungs burning as I raced toward my car. The night air felt thick and suffocating. Each step was both a relief and a reminder that I was escaping something. I was too frightened to look back. I just needed to get away. Reaching the car, I fumbled with my keys. Hands shaking, I finally unlocked the door and jumped inside, slamming it shut behind me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I glanced around the dim light of the cabin behind me. The tall trees loomed like dark giants, watching my departure. I had to get out of there. I started the engine and turned on the headlights. As I drove away, the cabin faded into the shadows of the forest, but something nagged at me. What had I just encountered? I knew I couldn't leave without understanding it. I pulled over on the side of the road, mind racing. I turned off the engine, the silence almost deafening. I pulled out my camera, still resting in the passenger seat. I replayed the evenings in my mind, the whispers, the shadows, that strange voice. It was all too surreal. I flipped through the photos I had taken at the cabin, hoping to find something, anything, that could explain what had happened. Most were just trees and landscapes, but then I saw it. In one corner of a picture, dark and blurry, a figure stood. It was almost imperceptible, but in the stillness of my car, it felt like it was staring back at me. My heart raced again. It wasn't just my imagination. I had captured something. I zoomed in closer on the small figure. It had a head and two arms, slightly distorted, but it was undeniably there. Without thinking, I decided to go back. I couldn't just leave it at that. My nerves churned as I turned the car around, heading back to the cabin. The drive felt infinitely longer in the dark, the trees closing in. When I arrived, the cabin stood quiet, a dark silhouette against the night sky. I parked and slowly stepped out, adrenaline flowing through my veins. I held the camera tightly, ready to capture anything. The air felt electric, charged with an unsettling energy. With each creak of the cabin's porch under my weight, I half expected to hear that voice again. Once inside, the familiar whispers returned, but this time they sounded urgent, almost frantic. I shivered, the hairs on my arms standing on end. I approached the attic stairway, the dread pooling in my stomach. I needed answers. As I reached the base of the stairs, a chill swept through the room. The air grew heavy. I peered up into the darkness of the attic. That's when I heard it, a shuffle, unmistakable footsteps moving above. Someone or something was up there. My heart raced as I stepped onto the first stair, eager yet terrified. It creaked loudly beneath my weight, as if protesting my decision. Still, I forced myself to climb higher. The whispers swelled, almost shouting now, feeding my anxiety. This was where the answers lay. Arriving at the attic door, I hesitated. My finger trembled above the knob, half expecting it to burst open. But I took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever awaited me on the other side. I pushed the door open slowly. Then everything went dark. I blinked, waiting for my eyes to adjust. Darkness enveloped me. I reached for my phone, using its flashlight to pierce through the thick black. The beam flickered across the attic, revealing dusty beams and boxes stacked in corners. Nothing seemed out of place, but the atmosphere felt charged. The whispers were gone, leaving an eerie silence. I felt exposed under the beam of light, uncertain if I was truly alone. I took a tentative step inside. The floorboards creaked beneath me, echoing in the silent room. I scanned the small space, heart pounding. That's when I noticed a box at my feet. It looked old, almost out of place against the otherwise empty surroundings. Curiosity piqued. I knelt and reached for it. My fingers brushed against the rough surface, and I felt a strange heat emanating from it. As I lifted the lid, a foul odor hit me, a mix of mildew and something far worse. Inside were old, yellowed photographs. I pulled one out, squinting at the faded image. It depicted a group of people standing in front of what looked like this very cabin, but there was a strange figure lurking behind them, half hidden in the shadows. My gut twisted. It was just like what I'd seen in my own photos. I flipped through more pictures, each one more unsettling than the last. Faces I didn't recognize stared back, their eyes blacked out, their mouths twisted in silent screams. The air grew colder, and the shadows around me seemed to deepen. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched again. Then, a noise shattered the silence, a soft thudding sound like something being dragged across the floor above me. My breath caught in my throat. I stood up quickly, adrenaline shooting through me. I scanned the attic, the beam of my flashlight darting frantically across walls and dark corners. The sound stopped. I glanced toward the attic door, heart racing. I had to choose, stay and search for whatever was up there or flee while I still could. But something compelled me to stay. The need for answers throbbed in my chest. I called out, my voice breaking the stillness. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence met my question. I felt foolish, but I had to know. As if responding to my words, the thudding resumed, closer this time, almost right above my head. I directed my flashlight toward the ceiling, narrowing my eyes on the dark shape shifting. It grew larger, looming ominously. Fear surged within me, but my feet refused to move. Then, without warning, a hand shot through the ceiling slats, fingers clawing, reaching for me. I stumbled backward, my camera clattering to the floor as my mind raced. I was not alone. This was no mere figment of fear. Something was here with me, something dark and hungry. I gasped, scrambling to get out of the attic while keeping my eyes fixed on that shadowy hand. But as I turned, the stairs creaked under my weight. I could still feel that thing watching, waiting. I had to act fast. I lunged for the door, but before I could reach it, that hand gripping the edge of the frame pulled itself up, revealing a grotesque figure shrouded in darkness, its eyes glowing an unnatural shade of red. I froze, heart pounding in my chest, unable to tear my gaze away. What had I awakened? The figure lingered in the doorway, a living shadow that seemed to swallow the light around it. Those red eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment I wondered if I was already lost. I could hardly breathe, the air heavy with dread. Instinct kicked in. I turned, sprinting toward the stairs, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly in front of me. I could hear it moving, dragging itself through the attic, behind me. I wouldn't stop to see if it was following. I felt a rush of wind as if it was rushing to meet me, but I didn't look back. My foot hit the first stair, and the aged wood creaked ominously under my weight. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance, but I pushed harder, throwing myself down each step while the attic trembled under that indescribable force. My heart pounded louder than ever, drowning out the sound of the fear echoing in my mind. "Get out!" I shouted to myself. It was all I could muster amid the panic. I reached the bottom, throwing myself against the wooden door, desperate to feel the coolness of the cabin air. Swinging it open, I stumbled out into the night. The moon hung high above, silver light flooding the porch and illuminating the grove of trees surrounding the cabin. My breath came in sharp gasps as I gripped the railing, trying to steady myself. I blinked at the woods, half convinced I'd see something waiting for me in the shadows. But there was nothing, just trees swaying in the night breeze. I stood there for a moment, wrestling with disbelief. Maybe it was all in my head, an overactive imagination fueled by old photographs and too much isolation. But the memory of its hand clawing through the ceiling flashed vividly in my mind, and I knew I wasn't alone. I needed to find out what that thing was and what it wanted from me. With shaky legs, I picked up my camera from where I had dropped it. Through the lens, I could examine the images I had taken earlier that day. The photos felt heavier in my hands, as if each captured moment pulsed with a lingering dread. I sifted through them, hoping for clarity. The cold light of the phone illuminated the images, and instantly my heart dropped. The figure was in my photos too, lurking in the background. But it was clearer now, its twisted form, the elongated claws, and the malevolence etched into its very being. I suddenly felt nauseous. Then I noticed something else. A figure standing in the distance, a child. I squinted at the picture, feeling a chill run down my spine. It wasn't just the shadow that followed me. It was something deeper, something more insidious that had taken root in this place long before I arrived. Before I could process the implications, a sound broke the stillness of the night. An unmistakable giggle came from the woods. It was light, almost innocent, but in this context it felt like a warning. I whipped my head toward the trees, breath catching in my throat once again. I couldn't shake the feeling that more than one presence was watching me now. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I stared into the dark. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement among the trees, small, almost childlike. My intuition screamed at me to turn and run, but the need for answers rooted me in place, and then everything went dark. I jolted awake, disoriented and shallow breathing. Panic surged as I scrambled to my feet, the darkness around me thick as fog. The last thing I remembered was the flicker, and now I'd lost track of time and space. I blinked rapidly, hoping to adjust to the night again. The moon had slipped behind the clouds, covering everything in an even deeper dark. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of my surroundings, the silence amplifying every rustle in the underbrush. I was still outside, but the cabin felt leagues away, its light swallowed by isolation. "Hello?" I called, my voice thin and unsure. There was no reply, just the whisper of the trees in the wind. I took a careful step forward, the ground feeling unsteady beneath my feet. Then I heard it again. A soft giggle, but this time it came from the other side of the grove. I swung my flashlight in that direction, the beam barely cutting through the darkness. The trees loomed like sentinels. There was movement, a slight shift of a shadow behind the trunks. Sweat trickled down my back as my instincts clamored for me to turn back. But the curiosity bubbled up stronger. I needed to find out what was happening. I inched my way closer, careful not to make too much noise. The giggle faded into something else, whispers that seemed to beckon me forward. Every hair on my body stood on end. What was out there? The thought of the figure still haunted me. Was it somehow connected to this? As I reached the edge of the trees, the moonlight broke through again, illuminating a small clearing. My breath caught in my chest. There, standing in the open, was a child, a little girl. She looked ethereal, her pale dress glowing in the moonlight. But her eyes were unnaturally wide, almost vacant. "Help me," she uttered, her voice echoing in the silence. Those two words hit me like a punch. Without thinking, I stepped forward. "Where are your parents?" I asked, glancing around for any sign of an adult. But there was nothing. Just her, standing there with an unnerving stillness. "I can't find them," she said, her giggle fading back into something more melancholy. She tilted her head, and I caught a glimpse of something behind her. A shadow more pronounced than the rest. The figure. A sense of dread crawled through me. "Run!" I shouted, but the little girl didn't move. She merely stared at me, a look of deep sorrow etched into her features. I felt frozen, caught between fear and a deep urge to help. "Do you see it?" she asked, pointing into the darkness. I followed her finger, and there it was, the malevolent figure from my nightmares, skirting the edge of the clearing, its red eyes locked onto mine. I felt a scream rise in my throat. Before I could react, the girl dissolved into mist, leaving nothing behind. Just the forest, closing in as the figure advanced. I turned on my heel, sprinting in the opposite direction. But I wasn't sure where I was going now. The path back to the cabin felt lost, and every step only seemed to lead me deeper into the ancient woods. I could hear it behind me, a hungry sound as it approached. My flashlight flickered, then sputtered out. Panic surged, darkness pressing in on all sides. Then I stumbled over something and fell hard to the ground, breathless and desperate. That's when I looked up and saw it. An old shack wedged between the trees, something I missed in my escape. Hope and dread twisted together in my gut. I gripped the ground, my heart racing, and decided to head toward it. I needed shelter. I needed answers. I was running out of time. The door of the shack hung slightly ajar, creaking ominously as the wind whispered through the cracks. I hesitated, fighting the urge to bolt in the opposite direction. The presence behind me felt palpable, pressing, like a breath on my neck. With my heart pounding, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The darkness enveloped me once more, but my instincts screamed that it was better than being outside. I fumbled around until I found a rusted lantern hanging from the wall. Desperately, I flicked the switch, and a dim yellow light sputtered to life. The flickering glow revealed walls lined with dusty shelves, each crammed with forgotten trinkets and old tools that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. "Hello?" I called out again, the sound of my voice echoing unnaturally in the confined space. I was met with silence, but my unease only deepened. I turned around, feeling the weight of the door behind me, half closed. That assumption of safety felt thin. What if the figure sought entry? The thought sent shivers racing down my spine. I quickly moved to a corner of the shack, hoping to put some space between me and the door. As I scanned the walls, something caught my eye. An old photo, framed and hanging crookedly. I stepped closer, adrenaline mixing with curiosity. It was a picture of a family, 2 parents and a girl, perhaps about the same age as the one I had just seen. Their smiles were bright, but something about the way they stared into the camera felt off, like they were hiding something. My gaze drifted to a small box beneath the photograph. I knelt down, heart pounding as I opened it. Inside were trinkets, a music box, a faded dress, and a small crystal orb. Just as I reached for the orb, a loud thump echoed from outside, cutting through the stillness, dragging me back to reality. I froze, listening intently. My instincts screamed to stay still, to not make a sound, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The thumping came again, rhythmic and insistent. Was it the figure? Then a voice, low and raspy, drifted through the wooden slats of the shack. "Help me find her." Panic erupted within me. I couldn't trust that voice, not after what I had witnessed. I darted to the back of the shack, hoping for a window. As I approached, a chill crept over me. The air thickened, and I felt as if I was being watched from every angle. Just then, the lantern flickered again, casting shadows across the room. I turned to face the door, holding my breath as I awaited the inevitable. The figure loomed just outside, its red eyes glowing with an unsettling hunger. Then everything went dark. The lantern went out, snuffing any remaining light. I was plunged into total darkness, the figure pushing against my thoughts like an urgent warning. I felt my way back to the door, fingers grazing the rough wood, but before I could reach for the knob, I heard the child's voice faintly pleading in the distance. "Help me." I had to choose. Stay hidden in the shack, or push through into the unknown where the girl called for me. Either way, time was running out. The footsteps of the figure grew louder, and I knew I couldn't remain where I was any longer. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever lay outside. The choice was before me, but as I stepped toward the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. I pulled the door open, wincing as it creaked against the night. The chill outside was sharp, but as I stepped through the threshold, the urgency of the girl's voice pulled me forward. I squinted into the darkness, scanning for movement, for any sign of her. "Where are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The wind howled, drowning out my words. I hesitated, feeling the ground shift beneath me, as if the very earth was conspiring to trap me. I took a cautious step into the night, heart racing. The sounds of the woods surrounded me, the rustling of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and... was that a giggle? I turned toward the sound, squinting into the blackness. "Help me!" The voice was closer now, but it twisted something deep in my gut. Was this a trick? Then from the shadows, she appeared. A small figure darted between 2 trees, pale as a ghost, with tangled hair framing a face that seemed familiar. I felt a surge of recognition. It was the girl from the photo, the one staring through the glass with those unsettling eyes. "Come on," she beckoned, urgency lacing her words. I hesitated. What if this was a trap designed by the figure? But the longing in her voice pulled at me. I took another step hesitantly. "I'm coming," I shouted, pushing through the brush towards her. The moon peeked through the clouds, giving a soft glow to the clearing. As I reached her, she pointed to a cluster of rocks nearby. "She's there. We have to hurry." I looked where she pointed, and my blood ran cold. The ground was disturbed, dirt and stones scattered, and there was a sliver of something glinting in the darkness. My heart raced for a different reason now. "Who? What are you talking about?" For a moment her wide eyes turned serious, almost desperate. "My mother. She needs help." I wanted to ask more, to make sense of it all, but the sound of heavy footsteps crashed through the stillness. I froze, instinctively grabbing her hand. The weight of dread bore down on me again. "Here," I urged, dragging her back toward the shack. But as I turned, a heavy silhouette emerged from the trees. The figure moved silently, its red eyes glowing like embers. It felt closer, more real than before. "Don't run," the girl whispered, her grip tightening around my hand. "It's following us." My breath caught in my throat as the figure advanced, its focus fixated on me. The voice that had beckoned earlier broke through the night once again, now more urgent, more menacing. "Help me find her." In a panic, I yanked the girl toward the shack, adrenaline surging through me. The door was ajar. I pushed it open wide, shoving her inside before ducking in myself. I slammed the door shut, my heart pounding. The darkness of the shack swallowed us, and I could barely see the girl beside me. "What just happened?" I demanded. But the air grew colder, a suffocating presence closing in. "Help me find her." The voice taunted closer now. I turned to the girl, desperate. "Who is it? Who are we helping?" But I was met only with silence. Then I felt it. 2 hands pressing against the walls of the shack, the figure looming just outside. I could hear the soft scrape of nails against wood, a chilling reminder that danger was right at my back. That's when I saw it. A faint glow emerging from the corner of the room, illuminating a dark pathway beneath the floorboards. My heart raced. What did that lead to? I had to know. But time was running out. I knelt down, peering at the narrow gap beneath the floorboards. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat, inviting yet terrifying. I glanced back at the girl, who now looked pale and lost. "Should we go down there?" I asked, uncertain if it was the right choice. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the door where the figure still loomed. "It's the only way to get away from it," she whispered, fear lacing her words. I didn't know if her assurance meant anything, but the thought of facing that thing outside made my skin crawl. I pushed some loose boards aside with trembling hands, quickly creating a space wide enough for us to crawl through. "Come on," I urged, glancing over my shoulder again. The scraping sound intensified, sending icy shivers down my spine. Without waiting for her reply, I slipped through the opening, pulling her along with me. The glow from below was brighter now, shining down through the cracks, guiding us into the darkness that awaited. As I landed on the dirt below, I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with fear. The air was stale, filled with moisture and an earthy scent, but it grounded me, reminding me that we were still alive. The girl followed closely, her breath quickening. "Where does this go?" she asked, her voice quivering. "I don't know," I replied, scanning the narrow tunnel branching off in 2 directions. Each path seemed equally foreboding. "Which way?" "Left," she said, gripping my arm tightly. "That's where she is. I can feel it." I nodded, trusting her instinct as we started down the left passage. The walls pressed in on us, the air heavy. The glow pulsed rhythmically like a whispering heartbeat, urging us forward. "Is your mother? Is she down here?" I hesitated, scared of the answer. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But she's not alone." That made my heart drop. What else was down here? Shadows flickered against the walls, and a low hum echoed from further down the tunnel. I felt the girl's grip tighten again, her nails digging into my skin. "We have to keep going," I urged softly, pushing through the knots of panic. But then a low growl emanated from the darkness ahead. I froze, the sound reverberating with a promise of danger. "What was that?" I whispered, my voice barely escaping my throat. "I don't know," she replied, her eyes wide. "But we have to hurry." We pressed on, the path growing narrower. The glow ahead intensified, silhouetting shapes in the darkness. I squinted and caught a glimpse of a figure, distorted and looming. My gut twisted. What if whatever her mother needed help with was something unspeakable? As we approached the source of the light, I felt the air grow colder. A door, slightly ajar, lay ahead, glowing softly. "That's it," she gasped. "That's where they are." I glanced back, but the growling was closer now, echoing in warning. I pushed the door open, bracing myself for whatever waited inside. When I stepped through, I found a room filled with shadows, the glow illuminating a twisted reflection of the girl beside me. The sight sent a chill down my spine. Behind her, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. A figure. It was there, watching us with red eyes glaring against the gloom. Before I could react, the door slammed shut behind us. Something was in the room, and it meant to keep us there. I darted my eyes around the room, searching for an escape route. The air felt charged with a suffocating tension. The glow pulsed, inching closer, and I noticed the figure more clearly. A woman, her features twisted and her hair tangled like roots. She looked almost familiar, but something about her felt wrong. "Who are you?" I choked out, my throat dry. The girl beside me gasped, recoiling slightly as if recognizing the stranger. "I'm here," the woman said, her voice a low rasp that echoed off the stone walls. "I have been waiting." "For what?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. "For her." The woman gestured towards the girl, then fixed her gaze on me, her red eyes flickering dangerously. "And for you. You came right on time." My heart raced. I didn't know what time meant down here, but I felt trapped in a nightmare that refused to end. I stepped back, scanning the perimeter. The shadows shifted around us, almost pulsating, and the low growl from earlier rose again. It rumbled, resonating through the room like a beast ready to pounce. "What do you want with us?" the girl cried out, her voice breaking. The woman grinned, revealing a set of yellowing teeth. "To free you, of course." "Free us?" I echoed, confusion flooding my mind. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the door behind us rattled as if something was trying to get in. My body went cold. There was something else out there, something that the woman had mentioned. Whatever it was, it didn't want us, at least not while we were with her. The girl clung to my arm tightly, her fear palpable. "We shouldn't trust her. We need to get out," she urged. "What if she knows how to help your mother?" I said, glancing back at the woman. "What if she can—" "No!" the girl interrupted, her voice rising. "She's not my mother. That thing is something else." "Then let us help you, dear one," the woman interjected smoothly, stepping closer. "You will find her, but you have to let go of your fear." The growl turned into a snarl, reverberating through the door now. Something huge pressed against it, struggling to breach our sanctuary. My instincts screamed at me. We needed to escape. "Run!" I whispered urgently to the girl, but she hesitated, torn between the mysterious figure and the noise behind us. The woman's expression flickered, a hint of impatience surfacing. She raised her hand, and the air thickened, a power emanating from her that made my skin prickle. "It's time to make a choice," she said with a voice that enveloped me in dread. In that moment, the door burst open, slamming against the wall. A massive shape charged into the room, dark and feral, its eyes glinting like shards of ice. I could see sharp teeth and a body cloaked in shadow. It hurtled toward us. Without thinking, I yanked the girl away and plunged deeper into the chamber, hoping to find another exit. But time was running out, and whatever that creature was, it wanted us, and it was coming. Then everything went dark. I blinked into the darkness, my heart pounding with fear. I couldn't tell if it was seconds or minutes that had passed in that void. Everything felt heavy and suffocating, but instinct clutched tightly at my resolve. I was still alive. But for how long? I fumbled around, desperate to gain my bearings. There was a thud nearby. The door must have been knocked from its hinges. Voices bubbled up around me, urgent, frightened whispers. My breath caught in my throat. The girl. "Where are you?" I croaked, panic edging into my voice. "Here," she called back, her voice small but clear. I could hear her, but the darkness felt inescapable as I moved toward her. My hands brushed across cool stone, then warm skin. "I've got you," I breathed, relief cascading through me. But there was no time to celebrate. The creature's growl persisted just beyond the door, primal and furious. The air felt electric with its presence. "Can't we hide somewhere?" I whispered, the panic fueling every word. I looked around frantically as we backed into the shadows, the glowing light now distant and flickering behind us. "Over here," she said, tugging my arm toward a small alcove in the wall. It felt claustrophobic, but we had no other option. We squeezed into the narrow crevice, trembling against each other as the growling approached. The door creaked and groaned as it swung violently. I caught a glimpse of the beast, its red eyes close enough to pierce through the darkness. The breath hitched in my throat as it prowled into the room, low and menacing. "Help me find her." The voice from the woman echoed through the air again, mixing with the growls and creating a dissonant chorus of fear. The girl's grip tightened around my wrist. "It's the thing I was telling you about," she whispered, fear lacing her words. "It leads its victims to her." Every rational thought dissipated. My instincts kicked in and I clenched my eyes shut. Protect her. That was all I could focus on. Suddenly the screams erupted from outside, rivaling the growl. I squirmed to see through the gap, heart racing. To my horror, the figure had taken a step back, its body twisted and unnaturally long. It was no longer just hunting. It was transforming, growing agitated. A shadow darkened the doorway. The woman was there, her silhouette looming, absorbing the faint glow into her very being. "You shouldn't have run," she taunted, her voice ringing with ancient malice. I pressed back against the wall, breath caught in my throat. "We need to get out," I whispered to the girl, more for my sanity than for any plan. But the girl didn't respond. I turned to look at her, and in that moment, an icy realization gripped me. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her wide dark eyes staring into a place beyond me. "She's too strong," she gasped. "Who? I can't fight her." The growl behind us escalated, mixing with her despair. Before I could react, the woman turned her gaze fully toward us. "Come to me, little one." "No!" I shouted, yanking the girl closer. "We have to go." I squeezed through the narrow space, pulsing with desperation. The darkness billowed around us as the creature lunged. I could hear the scrape of nails tearing through anything in its path, the low snarls vibrating closer. I felt the girl stumble beside me, panic swirling in the air like smoke. "Where do we go?" she whimpered. My eyes darted as we ventured deeper into the alcove. There was a faint light again, a glimmer far down the narrow passage connected to the room's heart, a way out. "We'll go through there," I directed, my voice suddenly betrayed by resolve. I heaved the girl into motion, darting toward the bright streak of light before it slipped away. The tendrils of dark energy twisted behind us, the shadows reaching out, desperate to pull us back. Pushing through, we sprinted into the glow, my lungs burning from exertion. We raced down the tunnel, the path responding to our urgency, luminous like a beacon against the darkness adjoining us. But the growling persisted, an echoing threat lingering just behind. "We're almost there," I encouraged, adrenaline surging within me. I could hear her footsteps pounding behind me, urgency propelling us forward. Finally, we burst through another door, and a flood of starlight cascaded down upon us, a clearing where the forest opened up, free and breathing. But the air shifted, cold and heavy, reminding us of the danger that would follow. We stumbled into the light, breathless and exhilarated. The trees seemed to whisper welcome, offering freedom, but a glance back sent icy tendrils wrapping around my spine. "Where is she?" The girl pressed urgently, eyes darting around for something or someone. Before I could respond, the thin, howling wind rolled through the clearing like a warning. A flicker of movement in the shadows made my spine crawl again. "Run!" I shouted, pulling the girl with me as we navigated through the woods, racing past the underbrush and away from the threat that felt like a ghost, haunting, cold, and relentless. I glanced back. Nothing. But I still felt the weight of its gaze, the invisible grip of unseen intentions sweeping across the woods. The girl was still with me, close and frightened. What was it? Why was she after us? I had no answers, only questions that were now clinging to my soul, uncertain, yet important. I don't know, I admitted, but we need to get help. Distant lights shimmered ahead, the road emerging from the darkened woods. Relief swept through me as I sprinted toward it. Finally, we tumbled out of the trees and onto the gravel road, bathed in moonlight and the hum of civilization beyond. We paused, gasping for breath. I glared back at the forest, still feeling its presence lurking in the shadows. I didn't know what lay ahead, only that we had escaped, at least for now. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lived there hadn't let us go entirely. There would always be questions left unanswered, lingering doubts about what happened. What had I awakened? Was it truly over? Or had I only scratched the surface of a reality that wouldn't allow us to forget? I turned to the girl beside me. What now? She looked up with wide eyes, still filled with awe and fear. I don't know, she mused, glancing back as though the forest would answer. I gave her hand a squeeze, a silent pledge of solidarity against whatever lay ahead. In that moment, in the wake of the oppressive woods, our choice to leave the darkness might have been the only light winning the battle for our souls. But the whisper of the woods still echoed, a reminder that some shadows linger, waiting, and in their waiting they hold immutable truths yet to be revealed. So we stood, faces turned towards the distant horizon, uncertain but resolute, ready to face whatever came next. Even if that meant grappling with a truth that may forever remain hidden in the dark.